There are days you feel like a name on someone else's list, a task to close out, a person to get through and move on from. The Gospels tell of two moments, right in the middle of the busiest, most urgent stretches of his life, when Jesus stopped completely. Not for the crowd pressing in on him. For one person standing silent inside that crowd, too afraid to speak. A father named Jairus had just thrown himself at Jesus' feet, begging him. His daughter was dying, not sick, dying right now. Jesus went with him immediately, and it seemed like the whole town poured into the street at once. People pushed, shoved, called his name from every side. This is exactly the kind of moment no one stops for. Every second of delay is a second closer to that girl's death. Inside the crowd sweeping Jesus along was a woman who had spent 12 years learning how to make herself invisible. She had been bleeding without stopping since before that. No one quite knew why. And the law itself called her unclean, barred from the temple, forbidden to touch anyone, forbidden to let anyone touch her. She had gone through every doctor she could afford, spent everything she had, and only gotten worse. 12 years is a long time to still have hope, but she came anyway that day, hidden inside the crowd, just to get one step closer to him. She had no grand plan. She didn't dare pull at his robe, didn't dare call his name, didn't dare ask him to turn around. Any of that would mean being seen, would mean exposing what the law called her uncleanness in front of a crowd that revered him. All she thought was, if I can just touch the edge of his cloak. She slipped between one shoulder and the next, ducked low, and for 1 second, just one, her fingertips brushed the hem of Jesus' robe. And everything stopped. Not the crowd. The crowd kept pushing, kept shouting. Jesus stopped. In the middle of an emergency, with a dying girl waiting somewhere ahead of him, with dozens of hands still reaching for him, he turned, looked around, and asked a question that froze his own disciples. "Who touched me?" Peter nearly laughed. "Teacher, the whole crowd is touching you." But Jesus didn't move on. He kept looking, waiting, as if he had felt something no one else had. The woman went still. She knew he meant her. She could have stayed silent and disappeared back into the crowd forever. No one would ever have known. Instead, she came forward, trembling, and fell at his feet, braced for the worst, to be exposed, shamed in front of the whole town for daring to make a revered teacher unclean. She told him everything. The 12 years, the doctors, the money, and the one belief she still had left. That just touching his robe would be enough. What she got back wasn't a rebuke. Jesus looked at her, not like someone who had broken a rule, but like someone being truly seen for the first time in 12 years, and said, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace, and be free of your suffering." In front of that entire hurrying crowd, he called her daughter. That was a story about someone trying not to be seen at all. But the same Gospels tell another story, about someone who made sure everyone saw her, because she never stopped working. Jesus and his disciples came to the village of Bethany, and Martha, the one who always organized things, always carried the load, opened her home to him. She went straight to work, water for washing feet, bread, food, a seat for everyone. This is exactly what a good host is supposed to do, and Martha had always been good at it. But her sister Mary didn't lift a finger to help. She walked straight to Jesus, sat down at his feet, the position of a student, and simply listened. While the dishes sat unwashed and the fire still needed tending, Mary sat there as if nothing else mattered. Martha kept moving, carrying, clearing, glancing at her sister sitting there, again and again. The frustration built, not because she resented Mary, but because of a feeling most people carry their whole lives. If I don't do it, who will? Why does it always fall on me? Finally, Martha couldn't hold it in. She stood right in front of Jesus in the middle of the room and said what she had been holding back. "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work myself? Tell her to help me." It wasn't a polite question. It was the cry of someone exhausted from always being the one who carries things. Jesus didn't take Martha's side against Mary. But he didn't let it pass in silence either. He said her name, twice gently, the way you would say a name to someone spiraling. "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about so many things. But only one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the better part, and no one will take it from her." It wasn't a correction aimed at someone hard-working. It was an invitation for someone who never stopped running to finally be allowed to stop. One woman believed she had to disappear to be acceptable. One woman believed she had to keep working to be worth having in the room. Both were carrying the same fear, wearing two different shapes. that if they stopped hiding, or stopped serving, they would stop being loved. And to both of them, Jesus stopped, looked straight at them and said, "That isn't true. Maybe you're carrying something you've never told anyone, a pain, a failure, a piece of your life you're hiding so it won't burden anyone else. Or maybe you're the one who's always fine, always the one who handles it, the one everyone leans on, so much that you've forgotten the last time you were allowed to just sit still." Both stories are really one answer, said two different ways. You don't have to disappear to be loved, and you don't have to run yourself into the ground to belong. Both times Jesus was on his way to something urgent, in the middle of things that couldn't wait. And both times he stopped anyway, not because he had time to spare, but because to him, one person always mattered more than the list. That's the part worth carrying with you, long after this video ends.